I'm going to be doing my session on oral reading fluency. So we're just going to look at what it is, why it matters, what the research says, what does good oral reading fluency teaching look like, and then some practical strategies for you all to practice. So learning objectives then is to know why it's important, look at some of the evidence-based strategies and practice some of the teaching approaches. So it is, as you said, consists of accuracy, appropriate speed and prosody. So as you were saying, reading with expression and phrasing and intonation, and also correct word reading at an appropriate speed. And it means that, as you said, it links to comprehension, so we'll come on to that. There's a nice definition: the ability to read accurately, quickly and with appropriate expression. That's what we want, that fluency. And oral reading fluency as in reading out loud. So why it matters, this is the key thing. It frees up that cognitive capacity for comprehension. So we all know about working memory overload. If the children are too busy trying to decode the word and work out what the word is actually saying and working out how to pronounce it, they're not going to be thinking about the meaning within the text, and certainly won't be thinking about how best to pronounce it fluently and what the way to pronounce it correctly within that text. So the idea of that, if they've got that fluency, it moves them away from decoding to actually making meaning, and that's what we want them to do. That means they can then read with more engagement and enjoyment. So I remember when I first started reading Dickens, for example, basically didn't understand every other word and used to have to sit there with a dictionary to try and work out what on earth was going on here. Didn't enjoy the book at all. And it's not until I became more fluent at reading that kind of pre-20th century text that I then started to enjoy it, because I became more confident with it and recognised the words. So it's the same for our students. Once they can recognise those words and they're fluent with them, they'll get more enjoyment from the text. And also it is the gateway to comprehension. So as you were saying, it links to comprehension. Are you familiar with the Scarborough reading rope? Is that something you've come across? It's quite an old piece of research from 2001. And the idea that is that the reading rope demonstrates exactly what goes into reading and why it's so difficult. So all of these strands are woven to become a skilled reader. So language and comprehension and word recognition, and within language comprehension there's the background knowledge, the vocabulary, the language structures, the verbal reasoning, the literacy knowledge, and then the word recognition itself, phonological awareness, decoding and sight recognition of familiar words. It's complex, and we find that's why children sometimes struggle at one point or the other. They might be able to recognise the words and decode them, but they don't understand what the words mean, or they might understand what the words mean but they're not able to read them. So it all needs to be woven in together to become a skilled reader. And the idea is that fluency is the bridge that ties the two aspects together. So it reduces cognitive load, it helps them to develop their expression, and we all know that expression aids understanding. If you can read something with expression, you don't have to be able to understand every single word. Like, for example, teaching Shakespeare, children are not going to understand every single word, but if you read it in such a way they can understand if the character is angry or sad or what's going on with that character without actually understanding every single word. And so that's why it's important. And that's a little graphic there that kind of sums up what we've been saying. So accuracy, automaticity and prosody, these all are the strands that go into reading fluency. Anybody got any questions about that so far? So you all understand what oral reading fluency is now. The ability to read out loud with intonation, with accuracy and at a decent speed. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to look at a little video by Tim Rosinsky. He is the oral reading fluency guru. Anything you read about it, Tim Rosinsky will be in there somewhere. And he basically is, he's done so much research about it, written so many books about it, that he's the person to listen to, and he will explain it better than me. So I'm just going to look at a 7-minute clip there. And he explains what he means by the reading bridge. So just give me a tick while I find. Okay, so this is the overview of his key research then. The oral reading fluency is a key component of effective reading instruction, impacting comprehension and accuracy. So a key component of effective reading instruction, we need to teach oral reading fluency. His model consists of automaticity, prosody, and that's developed through purposeful practice. So again, we've got to build it into our lessons and make sure that the children have that purposeful practice throughout the week of this fluency model, using things like poems and rhymes that are expressive, so you're getting them to use their expression as they're reading. He suggests a variety of fluency strategies, which we're going to be having a look at later on in this session. Repeated reading, choral reading, paired reading, teacher modelling, and they improve fluency for all reading levels. And also he argues that this has got to be integrated into our daily reading practice with the children without displacing phonics or comprehension practice. And this is often the challenge. You've got so much content to get through that trying to find that extra 10 or 15 minutes somewhere within the day to get in this fluency instruction can be challenging. A lecturer at Queen's in Northern Ireland, and Philip Lavery was the head teacher of a primary school, and they did a whole 4-year study of embedding oral reading fluency, if I can say it fluently, at Key Stage 2. They found that over the 4 years of the study, the children's reading fluency and the comprehension went up dramatically. And also, there were these effective gains as well, confidence and enjoyment of reading. So children who thought they couldn't read said they could read. A lot of the sort of quotes that they had from the children were like, I didn't know reading could be so much fun. I didn't know that I could be a reader. And they also got the families involved. Parents would come in and say, what have you done to my kid? They're reading at home. And it was like the gains were so visible that they really recommended using this approach. And for me, hearing it from real people, using it in real schools on a regular basis, and hearing about the gains made by the students, made me think that this is such a key part that we're sometimes overlooking. This was the book that they used. So I brought a copy of it for you to have a look at. They use the activities in this text, and that's what they base their interventions on. So 10 or 15 minutes per day across the classes. There's now a second edition, and you can see this has got a nice spiral bound to make it easier for photocopying. But they said it was very simple to just use Rosinsky and Cheeseman Smith's activities and embed them into their classrooms throughout the day. So they really recommended that. So just to identify the research, a strong relationship between fluency and comprehension. It's a key indicator of reading proficiency and correlates highly with comprehension. So the argument here, or the proof, is that students who are able to be fluent with their oral reading can make gains from 67 words correct per minute to 90 words correct per minute over the course of a very short time, which is quite a good change. This just says the same thing really, it just repeats what we've been saying. But the key thing is that this oral reading fluency has to be intentional. We have to teach it intentionally. We have to model, and the children have to have repeated practice. So we've got to build it into our daily practice really, so that the children get used to it. Oops. So just to recap, fluency enables comprehension by freeing up cognitive resources, allowing a focus on vocabulary, syntax and text meaning. It's the bridge between word recognition and comprehension. It also helps motivate students, because if students are struggling to decode, they get tired, they're not motivated. If reading is too hard for them, they lack motivation and sometimes they'll just give up. And you might have had children like that in your classes that have just said, oh, I can't do this, I give up. Fluent reading builds confidence and encourages engagement, and that's what a lot of these activities do that we're going to look at in a moment. And also you can integrate that way of teaching into your daily practice. So are there any questions about any of that at all before we move on?
I've got a question in terms of what is your opinion on phonics schemes in regards to the different points? Because I feel like a lot of phonics schemes, they hit at decoding but not so much enjoyment of reading or comprehension.
And that's one of the problems with phonics is that you need to have that understanding of phonics to be able to decode the word, but then it's not until you can read the word within a text that you kind of get that understanding and enjoyment. So I think the oral reading fluency kind of goes alongside with the phonics. Once you've got them to recognise the word, it's about getting them to read it and become familiar with it, and saying it in a sentence, that kind of thing. But yeah, there are some disadvantages, but the key thing is that this supports that. So that's a good question, thank you. Oops. So this is what struggling readers look like. So you may see these children in your classes where they're reading word by word, so they're trying to decode the word, but there's no expression, frequent errors and poor comprehension. Just as you were saying exactly that. They might have that ability to decode, but they don't understand what the word means. And because they don't understand the meaning of the word within the text, you get that lack of expression as well. Just a quick note about assessment. So typically, oral reading fluency is assessed through a 1-minute reading. I'm going to show you a clip of what that looks like in a moment. Words correct per minute is how it's assessed. But the key thing to note is that speed of reading is not an indicator of improved comprehension. So they might be able to read quickly, but still not understand what they're reading. So just be wary about using these assessments. We might have to do them in schools, and sometimes we do. But what I want you to do, this is just a 2-minute clip. As you look at it, think about the accuracy of the reading, the pace of the reading and the expression. And this will show you how that assessment is carried out. What did you notice about the reading, accuracy, pace and expression? Any comments about that?
The expression was quite monotone.
So the expression was
quite monotone.
Quite monotone, yes, absolutely, yes.
Didn't really feel like he was connecting with what he was reading.
He's just getting through the books, through the words. It's like we said before, that focus on decoding but not focus on expression and understanding the text. And I wonder if it's because he knew he was being timed. Did he feel under pressure to get through it in time? So that's why I feel a bit anxious about these assessments, because I feel that it puts the child under pressure, sucks the joy out of it. We want them to enjoy reading, but there was no enjoyment there that we could see. It felt like something he had to do.
And also with like expression, pace changes.
Yes.
It's just going blah 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 blah. Usually when you're a bit more expressionate, you slow down, and then you speed up and you slow down. So
that
should be timed.
Completely, that shouldn't be timed. If you want the expression, it needs to slow down, doesn't it? Perfect, thank you. So that's why I'm saying that speed of reading isn't going to demonstrate improvement in comprehension. It's the pronunciation is going to show the improvement in comprehension. So just to recap them, the benefits of oral reading practice: improved word recognition, aids working memory, reduces cognitive load. If you recognise the word, you're not having to work out what it means. Improved prosody leads to greater expression of meaning, and if you've got that greater expression, then again you can understand the text better. And that also then goes into silent reading. So children will, when they go to silent reading, will be reading with that prosody within their head as well. Improve recognition of subject-specific vocabulary and Tier 2 vocabulary. So if you want them to focus on subject-specific vocabulary, you can use the same techniques for a science lesson, a history lesson, a geography lesson, just using text with those subject-specific words in, but you're still practicing in the same way. New confidence in reading and enjoyment of reading. You're finding whatever you're teaching, confidence and enjoyment go hand in hand. As children become more confident, they enjoy it more, and the more they enjoy it, the more confident they become. All without increasing workload for teachers. So it's magic, really. Let me give you a tip here. So if you need to produce some resources for oral reading fluency practice, use AI. Just put into ChatGPT or one of the other engines your key stage, the topics, any keywords that you want, and just ask AI to produce a short text suitable for key stage 2 using these keywords, and within 30 seconds it's there for you. And then you can always tweak it. You can look at it and think, well, that's not going to work for my class, but I can use that as a starting point. So that's a good use of AI. Okay, so we're going to have a look at some of the teaching principles then. Key thing is modelling fluent reading. So you as a teacher have got to model the reading. Repeated practice. Feedback, where they get opportunities to hear from you about what they can do to improve. Feedback from each other when they're reading in pairs, working together. And then opportunities for performance as well, so they can perform to each other in small groups, to the whole class, if that's what you want them to do. But the key thing is lots of different practical approaches. So what we're going to do next is we're going to practice some of these examples of practice that you can do with the children. And we're first of all going to listen to Tim again, just a little bit about the importance of repeated reading, because this is key. We're going to watch that again from 37 minutes on. This is an important aspect. So, and it's in the Ofsted English Review as well, the importance of repeated reading of text. If you've got children that aren't confident readers, who don't enjoy reading because they find it difficult, by having them read the same passage several times over, they're going to get better and better at it. It's going to improve their confidence. Then they're more likely to have a better experience of the next passage, and then, as Rosinski says, they might see some familiar vocabulary in there as well. And by the time they've repeated reading that, the improvement is there to be seen. So don't shy away from repeated reading. And if they're reading something and they struggle with it, go back over it, read it again, and then read it again. That's the key thing with this deep repeated reading. Otherwise, as he showed earlier, they're just not going to make any improvements. So it's easy to say, okay, we read this last time, we're going to read it again just to make sure that you've all really grasped it and you can all feel confident with it, and then we'll move on. So it's important to, again, allow that time for the repeated reading. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the practice sessions then. I just happen to have some papers here for you. Having a look at in the pack, what I'd like you to do is read this sentence, first of all using a neutral delivery, and then you're going to read the sentence in several different ways. You can see where the emphasis is on the different words as you read through it. And then what you're going to do is emphasise the different word, discuss how the meaning changes, which words carry the most power, and then see if you can change the tone. Okay, let's have a look at then activity 2. So activity 2 then is just thinking about what does it mean to be fluent. So if you have a look at the passage, one of you read it in a monotonous tone, monotone, and then somebody read it in a fluent way, and then you would just discuss what are the differences and how did that affect understanding. So this is quite a nice activity again to do with the children. If you've got children that are reading in a monotonous way, you could model that intonation with them and say, how did that sound better? How did that improve your understanding? And how could you now do that as well? So just have a little read through, spend 2 minutes on that. And so, so again, the key principles then, try and build it into everything you do. The key thing is this daily short practice, so 5 or 10 minutes. If there's an activity that you think would work with your classes, try and build that in every day for 5 minutes or something. And then once they've got used to it, you can bring in other activities. The key principles are modelling expressive reading. So if a child is reading and it's not very expressive, you can say, okay, well, how can we do that better? How can we put more emphasis? Somebody else read it in pairs, whatever, with a different emphasis. And focusing on meaning over speed. So like we said before, that I'm not really very keen on that timed reading thing because I feel that sucks the joy out of reading. But this focusing on meaning and intonation. And also manageable instructional changes. So you've got a lot to cram into your school day, as we know, but if you can just have frequent reading aloud, then reading to each other, reading in pairs, reading in groups, or choral reading, where that you read and they read back to you, that kind of thing. Just trying to give any opportunity you can for reading aloud. That's really going to support them. So this kind of just reiterates the same thing, really. Differentiated text. So again, you're going to choose the passages you use depending on the reading level of your students, and Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2, and Key Stage 3 as well. I've used this as well for Key Stage 3. Things like echo reading. So if I'm teaching Shakespeare, for example, I might read a key few lines and have the whole class read it back to me, and then we're going to read that again with more emphasis or a different emphasis, and so they become more familiar and confident with using that unfamiliar language. So that you can build in the strategies as you go along. The key thing is that it's engaging. We want them to have fun and enjoy it, and reading with your friends is a lovely thing to do. I'm just showing you Reader's Theatre. So this would be the next step, really. This is available on the Education Endowment Foundation website. It's also part of Brzezinski's work as well in there. And this is a whole kind of 9-step model of getting children to use these strategies over a longer period of time. So as you build up your practice, this might be something that you think about doing yourself. One of the things they like most of all is the text marking. So they've got a bit of text which they annotate to guide their performance, and they really enjoy doing that. They feel empowered. They emphasise certain words and pause at certain places. So again, this is there for you for later on, really, as a next step. Key takeaways then. Fluency is essential, not optional. It must be taught explicitly. You've got to have that in your lesson plans. Somewhere in your plan you're thinking, where am I teaching that oral reading fluency and what activities am I using? It's got to be structured and repeated. You've got to have your text ready. You've got to have it all planned. It's not a thing you could do off the top of your head. And as you said right at the beginning, it directly supports comprehension.